Hello and welcome to OT Over Easy. My name is Becca and today we are just doing a brief overview of the ADA's role in work participation. As always on this channel, I'm just covering what you need to know for an entry-level occupational therapy exam. This is not a comprehensive legal review of the ADA by any means. First, let's clarify what the ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, does not cover. The ADA offers protections to a lot of individuals with a lot of different disabilities, but when it comes to work participation, it explicitly does not protect the following conditions. Temporary conditions, like if you fall and break your wrist. The ADA does not cover your work having to accommodate you during your healing period from your broken wrist. Conditions that are not substantially limiting. For example, if you have just a mild vision deficiency that is easily corrected by just wearing glasses, that is not protected under the ADA. It also does not offer protections to people with gambling addictions, people who abuse alcohol, pyromaniacs, kleptomaniacs. It doesn't offer protections for what I'm going to loosely lump together as sexual deviancy, so homosexuality, voyeurism, things like that. Now, the ADA can offer protections to individuals who are abusing drugs, but only if they are actively participating in a rehabilitation program. Outside of those explicitly listed conditions, the ADA will pretty much protect any other disability. For conditions that are protected, a workplace under the ADA must offer reasonable accommodations. These accommodations certainly apply to the job itself and the way that it is performed, but it also applies to the physical work environment, to the job application process, and to allow enjoyment of equal benefits and privileges. That's sort of a catch-all for any other bonus type stuff that isn't necessarily related specifically to the job or to direct compensation in a contract. For example, let's say that your workplace offers taking everybody out for a bowling night every now and then. That the ADA also covers individuals being able to participate in said bowling night, or if they can't do that, receiving some sort of bonus that is equal to bowling night level of enjoyment. I know that's kind of vague, but just understand that the ADA in the workplace covers things beyond just literally the day-to-day operations of doing a job. Now let's talk about that word reasonable for a second. A reasonable accommodation means that it's an accommodation that does not cause undue hardship upon the employer. If that sounds kind of subjective, it's because it is. It depends entirely on what the accommodations are and what the business is. What's the size of the business? What sort of things do they already have in place? What do they need to change in order to make these accommodations? If someone is being hired on to a massive corporation, it may be expected that that corporation can invest quite a bit reasonably in order to meet accommodations. Versus, let's say, maybe like a little mom and pop corner store. Maybe they can't afford to rechange the shape of their building in order to accommodate a mobility disability, for example. Something like that might be arguably feasible for the massive corporation, but not for the corner store. So that's where that reasonable qualifier in a reasonable accommodation kind of comes into play. So if you're trying to determine whether or not the ADA is applicable to a certain situation regarding work participation with disabilities, you're going to want to just think about these three things. Number one, does the individual have a history of an impairment that impacts multiple things in their life? If the answer is no, either because it's a temporary condition or an easily corrected condition that isn't significantly limiting, then the ADA is not going to apply to them. 2, does the individual meet the basic requirements for that job? Absolutely, we may be able to change the way that a job is performed, but the individual still needs to have the proper skill set to perform essential work duties. They have to have the minimum level of educational requirements for that job. So the ADA does not help people skirt around the need to be qualified for a position. You still have to be able to perform the core aspects of that job. So if in your scenario the individual cannot perform the essential work duties, even with accommodations, the answer is no. The ADA is not applicable. And then number 3, are the accommodations necessary reasonable? Again, that is subjective depending on the resources available to that business, either internally or externally, if there's some community supports that can help with funding, or if they'll interfere with the operation of the business. Again, if we think about that little mom and pop store, if you're asking them to put in a wheelchair ramp and they have to close store for a couple weeks to make that happen, that might put them under. So again, for them, that is not reasonable. And that's it. Hopefully this clarifies the ADA's role in the workplace. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to see me cover in a future video, leave them in the comments below. But otherwise, I hope this made studying a little more easy. Happy studying!